Welcome to the Piano Bible Lesson 2, and before we start, I'd like to say congratulations to you. Because if you've watched Lesson 1 and done the exercises properly, you now know how to name all the notes of the keyboard. That's kinda cool. I mean, many students need weeks, if not months, to achieve that, and I think it's important you know why. The main reason why those students are so slow is because their teachers use the wrong method. They want to teach songs immediately, without having to talk about the boring theory. And on the short run, yes, the student will be motivated. But on the long run, the student will inevitably lose motivation, because it is simply impossible to improve without any theory knowledge. You will always be dependent on your teacher to learn a new song and show you exactly where to put your finger. And so the main reason why I created this channel is to make you become independent. There are already millions of tutorials on the internet that will pretend to teach you how to play piano, but none of them will give you all the right tools to learn a new piece on your own, combined with that little bit of motivation you need. But enough talking, let's learn how to read notes. So, if you look at any piano score, you'll notice several sets of lines. And each set always has 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And between those lines you have 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, on each line and on each space you can place notes. But in order to know the name of each note, you need to take a look at the symbol in the beginning of the set. This symbol is called a treble clef. Treble is a word coming from the UK and means higher notes. They say, for example, a boy with a treble voice, which means a boy with a high voice. So now you can probably guess that the treble clef is used for the higher notes. And as we know, on the piano the higher notes are played with the second half of the keyboard. So in the future we will read all those notes on the score using the treble clef. But let's find out how. It's important to know that the treble clef is also called the G clef. Why? Well, simply because it determines where you can find the G. Look, the symbol of the treble clef is placed on the second line from the bottom, this one. You can see that I start on this line when I draw the symbol. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but the symbol of the treble clef originally comes from the letter G. And so every note that is placed on this line will be a G. This is a G, this is also a G. Now that you know the name of this note, G, can you determine the name of those two notes? You would have to use what we've learned in lesson 1. Before G we have an F, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And after G we have an A. So on the score, the note under G is an F, and the note over G is an A. And this way you can determine all the rest of the notes. Over A we have B, then C, D, E, F, G. But what happens if you want to continue after the G? To have an A, there are no more lines. Well, we are simply going to add an extra line. This short additional line is called a ledger line, and this note is an A. Now just for the sake of practicing, let's go down. For that, we basically need to recite the alphabet backwards. So under A we have G, then F, E, D, C, B, A. Then again G, F, E, D, and now we don't have enough lines again. So what do? We add a ledger line. This note is a C, and this note is quite important. It is called the middle C, because on a piano it's in the middle. It doesn't matter what size your keyboard is, the middle C will always be the most central C, and it sounds like this. In the next lessons we are going to use this note as a reference point. It's kind of like 0 degrees Celsius, the breaking point between ice and liquid. But another reason why this note is so important is because it makes the transition to another clef. Let me explain. If we take a look at the score again, we've seen that this C already requires a ledger line, which means that if we want to write even lower notes, we would need to add other ledger lines. But that C is only in the middle of the piano. So all this first half of the piano with the lower notes would require a lot of ledger lines, right? That's not practical at all. So in order to make it easier, we are going to add a second staff. And the symbol for this staff is this one. We call it a bass clef, since it's used for the lower notes, the bass. So that middle C is kind of the transition between the two clefs. It doesn't matter whether it's here or here. Those two notes are exactly the same, a middle C. Imagine there is a line between the two staffs. The note on this line is a C, the note under this line is a B, and the note over this line is a D. So instead of having the B right here, we can have the B here. Those two notes are exactly the same. And we could go on. Instead of having the A right here, we can have it here. Those two notes are also the same. Instead of having the G here, we can have it here. And instead of having the F here, we can have it here. And now you start to see how important the bass clef is. This note would be really difficult to read since it has 3 ledger lines, so it's much simpler to have it here. Okay, let's take a look at the bass clef again. You can see 2 points right here. That's because the bass clef determines where the F is, which is why some people call it the F clef. So every note on this line, the second line from the top, will be an F. That's an F, and that's also an F. You see, that's really the tricky part about reading music, because this note is an F. Okay, but if you change the bass clef to a treble clef, then this note is a D. So now you can understand why reading notes can be so difficult. And it actually took me several years before I could instantly read notes and switch between clefs. But don't worry, because I know some tricks that, by the way, would have saved me a lot of time if I knew them before. And I will share them with you in the next video. You will also find exercises to make sure that you remember all the new information. And don't forget to do all of them before watching lesson 3. And trust me, you can be proud of yourself, because learning piano on your own is not easy. So if you have any question, let me help you and leave a comment. I'll try to answer it as fast as possible. Also, if you would like to work on a specific topic with me or learn a specific song, I actually give individual Skype lessons. For that, you just need to write me an email. You can find my email address in the description box below. So, hopefully now you have all the right tools you need to improve your piano skills. See you in the next video. Good luck.